What's up, it's your boy John Domando, and so I just recorded a video about why you should really focus on making your accent as precise as possible in a foreign language that you're learning. But this video is gonna basically be like the counter to that video, and this is a video about why it isn't always so important to have the perfect accent in a foreign language. So, and what inspired this video is, talking to one of my foreign language friends. So let me tell you a little story. So, a friend of mine, who she might be watching this video, I'm not sure, but I'll probably tell her to watch it. She said that because she's learning English from me, kind of sort of, even though her English is already good, and I'm learning like Vietnamese from her. So she told me that she had another pen pal, and she recorded an audio of her speaking, right? And she asked her pen pal like how do you think I sound? Do I sound like really native when I speak, or? And her pen pal said she sounded about like 50% of a native speaker, right? And she's been learning English for about 5 years, right? So she felt really. She just felt like she wasn't making any progress. Like she was telling me, she's just like, yeah, when he said that, like it just made me feel really sad about like the progress that I've made in English, right? And that's kind of what gave me the idea to make this video. So let me tell you why it's not super important to master your accent in a foreign language. All right, so there are people who come to America, obviously, they immigrate to America. English isn't their first language, right? And, they'll be here for 20, 30 years, and they'll still have a little bit of an accent after all those years, which is I think is pretty normal, and not to mention that if you were to say something negative about somebody's accent, like say, oh, you're pronouncing this wrong or whatever, it's at least in English, that could be seen as really rude, and derogatory. So that's not something that's really big in American culture, or some people do it, but it's not something that's really that people see as okay. Whereas in other cultures, for example, just other cultures, it's common for them to this isn't right. Okay, you say it like this, you say it like this. No matter if you're at a very high level or whatever. It's just common for them to do that. I think it's mostly because, it's just the way our culture here is set up. Whereas it's no, you can't really correct that. And I mean, it's fine. I think the most important thing after all is just being able to communicate. Another reason why it isn't super important is, let's say you already understand about 80-90% of what's being thrown at you, like a high speed speech and things like that. So at that point you have to think about what your goals are. So let's say for example you're learning Spanish. So what's your goal to what's your end goal? Is it to just do it as a hobby? Is it to move to Spain or move to South America? Or is it to, you gotta, or is it to teach other people? But you have to really specify your goals. And if your goal is to just learn it as a hobby, which is kind of what my goal is right now, but who knows, it might change in the future, then it isn't necessarily important for you to, get your accent completely perfect, even though it is to some people it would be really easy, especially if you immerse yourself, to get your accent perfect. So that's another reason. Now, again, and another reason is at the end of the day, no matter what language you try to learn, you're always going to be a foreigner trying to learn that language. And not to say that that's a bad thing, not that they look down on foreigners, but it's just you're not necessarily part of that culture. So you're part of your own culture, so it's nice to see people from other cultures take interest in their culture, but it doesn't necessarily have to be to the point of like quote unquote perfection, even though there isn't really perfection. Not to mention back to what I said about people who immigrate to America. Like, no matter how many American people they stand next to, sometimes their accents aren't going to be completely perfect. Like, even people who are really, really like good at English, that really complicated words, sometimes they still speak with an accent, and like there's nothing wrong with that. Like that's something, because obviously you still have a tie to wherever you're from. So you're gonna. It's like you go to work, you speak to everybody in English, and then you go home and you're speaking Spanish to your family, and it's like that. A lot of those like kind of sounds like phonetics are kind of just ingrained into your brain. So things like that. So like that's kind of the same thing with me and French. Like sometimes I still pronounce things wrong, but I can understand basically everything. I can make sentences, like, even though the sentences aren't perfect yet, but I'm gonna kind of perfect those like as I go on. But I can communicate my point across like in almost every single scenario. So, and back to the story I told at the beginning of the video, where about my friend. Like, when she told me that, I told her, I said, hey, like, first of all, I was throwing a bunch of slang at her, and she was understanding like almost everything. I'm just like, what are you talking about? Your English is really, really good. Your comprehension skills are good. Speaking skills are good. You don't have any problems. And she was just like, she's like, yeah, but I mean, I don't sound like native. I was just like, you don't have to sound native. Like, you're not a native. Like, and you have to think about it. She lives in Vietnam. She's surrounded by Vietnamese people. She doesn't really have too many foreigner friends. And so, like, she doesn't really even get opportunities to speak English that much unless she's talking to me or, like, other pen pals. And I told her all this. I'm just like, for that, and in 5 years, you've done really, really good. Like, you should be proud of yourself. Like, you shouldn't, like, put some kind of requirement that, oh, I need to sound native, because that's just going to take away like everything in your head about the progress that you've made. Like, you've worked hard. Like, you need to reward yourself instead of feeling bad about not being native or so on and so forth. And she was just like, she's like, yeah, you're right. You really helped my confidence. Thank you for telling me that. Stuff like that. And that's the whole gist of this. You have to set an end goal. Just because one person's goal is to sound as native as possible doesn't mean that has to be your goal. If it's not your goal, like, you have to really think, you have to really understand yourself and what your goal is to get out of this language. All right, but that's enough rambling about that. So what do you guys think about this? Like, am I wrong? Like, I'm more than willing to hear other people's perspectives in the comments section. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you guys like it. Check out the other video on this channel. And all that BS. Check out my other channel, John Domondo. I can't post travel stuff on it right now, but once I start traveling again, I'm just gonna flood that channel with so much content, man. A lot of it's gonna be like partially like with language stuff. Like, I'm gonna go to countries of the languages that I'm learning. So just stay tuned for that. And I think that's basically it. Thank you guys for watching as usual, and Mondo out. Easy.